Welcome to the Bolo Chronicles, a show celebrating the written works of MacEwan students and alumni featured in the Bolo Tie Collective Anthology series. I'm your host, Emma Morrison. Today's guest is Viktoria Bradley. Viktoria is a MacEwan alumni who graduated with a double major in history and English. Alongside her love of literature and history, she's also passionate about antiques, nature, and storytelling. Join Viktoria and I as we chat about her anthology piece, the creative process behind it, and how the themes of nature, history, and emotion shape her writing. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get right into today's episode. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a MacEwan alumni. I graduated last year with my double major in history and English, which basically means I'm a glutton for punishment and I really love reading. So that's what I studied back here at the university. But when I'm not being a total nerd about history and English, I do a lot of sewing and gardening and stuff. I have two cats,
Oh, that's so cute. What are their names?
Loki and Seth.
Oh gosh.
They're actually blood siblings. They're from the same litter, and my fiance got them, and so they're just the sweetest, and I love them so much.
Oh my gosh. I love cats. They're so cute. What is your favorite era in history? Like your favorite time period? I know that's a really
Ooh.
loaded question, but I would
Yeah.
love to know.
I'm very interested in revolutions, and specifically the Haitian Revolution is, I wouldn't say a favorite moment in history. I wish it didn't have to happen. Like
Yeah.
that, I wish enslaved people were given their rights instead of having to fight for it, fighting for their freedom. But I think the Haitian Revolution is just such an interesting point in history because it is the first successful slave revolt that occurred.
Yeah.
And has no one ever talked about this?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what has happened in the world, a lot of wars and situations have been a result of the Haitian Revolution, but we don't talk about it.
On to the second question. What is your favorite sentence, paragraph, or part of your anthology piece? And why is it your favorite?
Okay, I've opened my book to page 111, and so it's the third paragraph, and it says, "When she arrived at the ladder, she looked down. It would be so easy to fall. Her bones would crack like leaded crystal, so thin and dainty that a whisper could turn the glass to dust. She was dust too, wasn't she? Wasn't everyone?" Florence slowly descended the ladder, the cake tin tucked precariously underneath her armpit. She could hear its contents shaking with each step, and felt like her heart stopped with each movement. She counted the rungs as she climbed down, hoping it would quell her anxiety. It did not. Not a long or particularly arduous climb, but when her slippered feet landed on the hardwood floor, she felt her stomach settle. Florence leaned against the ladder and took a deep breath. I think that part of the piece is my favorite because it's part of the piece that's changed the most, even though that was like the first thing I wrote. Was this. I wrote it for a class, and it was, write about an interesting old woman. And I think all people are interesting. I think that's why I'm a historian. I think I'm a little nosy and I like to know about the nitty-gritty of life.
Yeah.
That's why I work in antiques as well. And so to know the way people feel in a moment in time. And throughout the piece, I've changed so much. I've taken out so many different things, but this has remained like the most constant scene is Florence going down the ladder.
I love it. It's
Thank
so,
you.
in my mind, I could feel and experience what you were writing, especially even when you were reading it. It give me goosebumps. I love it.
Thank you.
So speaking of like always having that scene in, how did you approach like your creative process? And were there any difficulties in like writing this specific piece?
That's a good question. I think the creative process, I think a lot before I even write anything. I just internalize it and I imagine. It's something I've done since I was a kid, just, playing it out in my head. It's honestly a bit like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm playing it around
Yeah.
but before I even write it down. So oftentimes I'll write things out by hand and then I'll type it up. And usually it changes a lot in that over that time. The hardest part of writing the piece was honestly more the emotional bits of it
Yeah.
because, digging into that deeper emotion of
Yeah.
that like sense of loss that Florence feels. That was really difficult and I had to sort of go into my own past and like build on that. And
Yeah. In your journey writing with this emotional feeling, did you have like any influences from other authors to help you kind of dig deep into that emotion that Florence was feeling that you could reflect into her and you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I do. Yeah. It's interesting because I have quite a few like authorial influences like Silvia Moreno Garcia and also like Marcus Zusak with like The Book Thief, Jane Austen, obviously, because I've got Jane Austen page flags.
Yeah.
But like with the emotion, I find that I go more on my experiences as an actor before I go on my experiences like with writers. Like I have my like the authors I like consider influential on me, but it's more like narrative wise and more characterization wise. Whereas emotional stuff, I went to like theater school and stuff as a kid and
Yeah.
stuff, and so I feel like I learned more from that, and it's kind of hard to explain,
Yeah.
but dwelling on the experiences I learned from in theater and just trying to learn how to feel for the character. You just have to have that sense of empathy.
Yeah, that is such a wonderful insight as like a writer to have that empathy for those characters or who you're writing with.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that because I've always just never really thought of that. So that's a wonderful like takeaway. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
What themes do you find yourself returning to in your work and why are they important to you?
Oftentimes, I tend to go back to like themes of nature and the corruption of nature, like as like a gothic sort of theme.
Interesting.
And not just like nature, just, being outside in the world, but also human nature and just how that can be influenced by society, by history, by gender and social constructs. I think those are the things I tend to go back to a lot. When I was practicing my writing and having a professor look at it, she's like, you write a lot about nature. And it's kind of hard for me not to. I think of how tied I am to the natural world, and
Yeah.
a lot of us can't escape that. So I think that influences my writing a lot.
Do you also think it really ties into you being like a historian and really like being immersed in like antiques and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. You get to see like the beauty of nature, but also the decay of it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like antiques, the beautiful aspects of items, but you also get to see how they decay over time, especially based on how someone treats it.
Right. How do you balance personal experience with storytelling in your writing?
That's a good question. I think a lot of my personal experience relates more into the emotion. I don't think I've really ever put a lot of my own experiences into writing. Like, oh, I'm going to write out this thing that I experienced as something a character does in my story. I don't really do that. But I do put in a lot of my emotions into that. I've talked about that a lot, but there is a scene between Florence and her husband, Jonah, and I based it on a situation with my ex who was very emotionally abusive.
I am so sorry you went through that.
It's okay. I've dealt through it with therapy and stuff, but one of the ways I dealt with it was through writing, and I wrote, this scene isn't based on anything we dealt with, but it is like the essence of how I felt in that situation and how I felt like he saw the whole thing.
Yeah. Did you find it quite liberating when you wrote that for your emotions as well as like your writing process?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
And
that's so exciting.
yeah, it is. And not gonna lie, people were very excited to hear my thoughts on it because like when we did the Bolo Tie publication day, people were asking me about it and they're like, is your ex this character? And I was like, yes.
Oh.
And they're like, I am very satisfied to see you do this to him. And I was like,
That's so wonderful that you were able to find that liberation through writing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us do. Speaking of other writers, what advice would you give to aspiring writers looking to find their voice or their style or write better?
One of the things is just practice and play a lot. Have a sense of play and fun with it. Read as much as you can, and not just with the genre that you want to write.
Yeah.
But read things that you might not be comfortable with and learn to play around a little bit more with the stuff you do. What I find is like helpful to me is writing things out and then typing them up because that helps me edit as I go along. Another tip that Gail Carriger, one of my favorite authors, gave is only edit what you wrote the day before.
Yeah.
And that really helps me not just go back and edit constantly because otherwise I could just do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I do think that like taking the time to write every single day, and it doesn't have to be good.
Yeah.
It can just be like a couple sentences in your notes app, but taking the time to write something and just have fun with it.
That's so incredible. I find that sometimes when I do practice writing that I do come up with some creative, like I get creative blocks. Do you have any suggestions for myself or for writers to help get rid of like creative blocks that we are experiencing at all?
One of the things that I find that helps, and it was from a book called Writing Down the Bones.
Interesting.
And basically, she says to write about what you want to write about.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really helps just get through that block and then
Yeah.
whenever you get stuck, I want to write about this. I want to write about that. And I find that really helps me just get into that mode. And I also found that really helped when I was writing my essays in university. Just sometimes you get really frustrated with your writing, and it's like, I really don't want to write another essay about Canadian political history. So I want to write about this part. I want to talk about how Mackenzie King used to commune with the dead in order to work on his foreign policy and stuff.
That is so crazy. I didn't even know that.
It was a thing. He used to do seances with like his dead mother and dead great grandfather.
That is so insane. I did not know that. That guy is metal as hell for doing that.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is the man that ran the country during World War II.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it kind of makes sense.
It does. But like, I found that just, taking the time to like think about what you want to write about, as well as just taking time to relax. And like, if you are finding it hard to write, step away for a moment, watch a show that you enjoy, something that you find familiar and stuff. I always like to go back to my favorite movie, Austenland, a lot.
Interesting. I've never heard of that movie. I gotta watch it.
It's very funny. It's got Jennifer Coolidge in it, and it's basically like what would happen if Jane Austen fans had a theme park to go to where people are paid to act and pretend like they're falling in love with you.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
It's so interesting. Wow.
Yeah. There's a very funny scene about chamber pots that I love. But that's just because I have a funny relationship with chamber pots. I had a viral video about that at my job.
That's so cool.
It's an interesting concept because it talks about fan culture a lot and how we as fans have a relationship with the texts that we love so much.
Yeah.
And maybe the fantasy is not as great as what we thought it would be.
Yes. Sometimes we build that fantasy up in our head, and then it never lives up to the expectation that we create, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what made you decide to join the Bolo Tie Collective?
It was because of my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friends Jess Zadrill and Elliot Westerpack, who are also in this anthology, and their pieces are incredible. Elliot and Jess are just fantastic people, but their writing is chef's kiss. Also Janelle's writing as well, who I met because of Bolo Tie, and I love Janelle. Janelle's great. It was really just seeing them and seeing how comfortable they were putting themselves out there. I really admired that, and I just was like, you know what? I've been at MacEwan for 6 years. I wanted to do Bolo Tie this entire time. My last year, all my friends are doing it. Why not? And that's how I got into it. I'm very glad I did because everyone is so kind and we all uplift each other. It's wonderful.
Ah, that's so wonderful. I love that. How has the Bolo Tie helped you in your writing career and just career endeavors in general?
I find that it helped me first learn like the process of editing better. I mean, I did take a couple courses on editing when I was in university, but it helped me learn about the whole process that goes into editing a book.
Yeah.
And that was really cool, but also just I really like the community aspect. That really helped me with, with my own writing is just like, I find that it's better to write with a community around you because writing is such a solitary activity, but having people who also write and get it is amazing. And also just being in the writing community in Edmonton is such a great thing because the writing community is so nice here. And yeah, it's helped me with that a lot. Just, getting out there and getting past, the imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
It's like so many of us are out there. So everyone deserves to be here in their own way. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. What inspired you to actually start writing, and how has your journey evolved over time?
I really struggled with reading growing up. My dad and my mom, they would sit me down and we would read for 15 minutes a day. And that really did help me like learn and begin to love reading. I've always loved story. I always loved film and stuff. Growing up, I wanted to be an actor. I really liked, writing my own little plays and stuff. And, play acting with my friends. Like it's almost like Dungeons and Dragons. You role play around with your friends growing up. And that's I think I just sort of fell into that, especially like after, you grow out of doing that with friends and stuff. Well, I never did because I obviously played Dungeons and Dragons, but play acting and all that kind of stuff really influenced me and made me want to go and do some writing. And then when I got into university, I found that I was still attracted to stories. I originally came to university to study Spanish.
Oh, interesting. That's such a turn of events, hey?
Yeah, it is. So, yeah. And before that, I was going to go into fashion school, but I was like, well, MacEwan doesn't have a fashion program. At the time, it didn't have that. So, but now, yeah, and I just fell into history and I fell into English. And I'm very glad that I did because it's taking me to where I am now.
That's so incredible. How do you see the future of literature evolving in today's digital age?
That is a good question.
Since you are a historian and have studied history, like, what do you foresee for the future?
So hard because it's with the introduction of AI, which I hate AI, it makes it a little bit harder for people to, get into that writing space because writing is hard. Writing is practice. You can't just go out and do it like once and then it's done. You have to go back on it and look at it. And so people think that like using AI is just gonna help, get you there. And I think that is gonna be very influential. I hope that there will be more measures taken to control it, especially because with AI cannibalizing a lot of what is already been written.
Right.
I see a major issue with that. I see a lot of like court cases happening in the future. I mean, there's already some happening now. It's hard to predict. I do think that what's the situation that's going on in the States, specifically with like banned books and stuff, how we're seeing books being banned and stuff, that might influence the way that writers and publishers are going at their writing. Because, there's a lot of fear and publishers, they don't like to break the mold a lot of the time. And so that is my concern, is that they're not going to publish things that they're afraid would like rock the boat or something.
Yeah. That is incredible. Thank you so much for coming today. I
Thank you.
appreciate, and the Bolo Tie Collective appreciates you taking your time out of your busy schedule to come and see us.
Well, thank you. It was so lovely to talk to you, Emma, and I love being a part of the Bolo Tie Collective, and I love, having the chance to talk about this piece.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Bolo Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Viktoria Bradley, exploring her journey as a writer, her creative process, and the inspirations behind her anthology piece. The theme music is by MLAP 101, with editing done by Emma Morrison. If you like what you heard, subscribe on YouTube, click the notification bell, and follow us on our socials at the Bolo Tie Collective. Until next time, thank you for listening.